Hi, welcome to the demo. I'm going to make a copy of this drawing, and as I do, I'll explain what I'm thinking, how I'm able to get the proportions accurate. And if you haven't seen the video lesson, make sure to do that first because I'm going over all the concepts there. Ready? Let's jump in. I'm starting the drawing by setting the extreme proportions. Top, bottom, left, right. This is also how I'm placing the drawing on the page. I can move it left, right, up, down at this point, but here I'm just trying to lock in those extremes. So remember when I said measure big stuff and measure early? Well, this is that. Here I'm measuring that distance, the width. And nice, looks like I got it pretty well. Got lucky there. And the height next. I'll just turn the measuring stick. I'm doing this digitally just so my hands don't get in the way. It's all very simple and clear. I could do either foot. I chose the top foot. And that worked pretty well too. Well, let's use that. Usually at this point I need to make some minor adjustments, shift things around a bit and make some corrections. But okay, let's keep going. By the way, I am wearing the measurement glasses at this point. And I'm looking at that knee and I'm just switching to the alignment glasses. Also judging where that foot would be by imagining an alignment going up. And same for that base on the right. Sometimes when there's nothing to hold on to visually, it can be useful to extend an imaginary alignment line and use it to estimate a distance. Okay, we're still very early in the drawing, and my priority now is to add the biggest things possible. Here, just to show the shoulder, adding it doesn't really help that much. Something that's much more visible is that line from the feet up into the fabric. And I messed up that angle, so put on the angle glasses, reassess, and redraw that line. Still not quite. I'm estimating the height, and there we go, that looks better. As I'm working, I'm trying to keep the drawing as simple as possible, add as few complications and distractions as possible. And I'm working hard to put each line in its proper place. Because I've learned if I'm sloppy now, I'll pay the price later. So I'd rather work carefully now. Here I'm taking another big measurement from the tip of the toe to the line on the right there. Pretty good. So that was a little bit too narrow. If this was a pencil drawing, I would erase and redraw. And since we are in Photoshop, I can just move that line. Still feels a little tight in there. And I can't quite get the angle right. This is partly my Wacom tablet, but I decided to leave this part in and not cut it out because you can see the struggle. I keep redrawing until it feels right. Next up, implied line glasses. I'd like to capture that swoop that goes from the arm down into the legs. I'm doing a little Photoshop trickery using a line tool and then warp. Of course, in pencil, this would just be a line. And I'm placing that carefully and looking at the knee, the distance between the knee and that line. Okay, I'm about to do something dangerous. I'm going to take these lines on the right that we've just drawn and bring them over on top of the drawing on the left. This would be similar to tracing a drawing or to maybe taking a photograph of your drawing, taking a photograph of the model, and putting them on top of each other in Photoshop. Now, if you don't understand camera lenses and focal length, all these things, distortion, you can really get yourself in trouble. It can be a very accurate way of checking something, but it can also make you lazy. I'm doing this now to show you how close you should get, how accurate we need to be at this early stage of the drawing. The big stuff should be in the right place. So let's see how I did. The moment of truth. And pretty close. Not too bad. Okay, so there are only a few very small adjustments. I'll make them right here. That top mark slightly higher. Shoulder slightly to the left. Everything else, I guess that toe can come down. But that looks pretty good. And with this, we have all the big things placed. Next, if this was a drawing, I would rub it out with my hand. Here, I'm just going to apply a blur filter and lighten the value of those lines a bit. So these are placement marks. This is not the drawing. This is where the drawing will go. And with that foundation, we're able to start laying in some lines. I'm starting with the back, and I have to rotate the canvas here to make it more comfortable, using my angle glasses to match that curve. And I think we all have that tendency to want to continue on a line that we started drawing. And instead, what I will try to do is work on the whole drawing and keep putting in those big lines, big shapes first. Angle glasses for those legs. I'm trying to place the knee, remembering that we had that alignment with the front of the face. So that is good to know. Make sure that's working. And I guess at this stage I'm using the angle glasses quite a lot, looking at those specific tilts, inclinations, trying to match those exactly, while always paying attention not to get lost in details. Like that heel, stop, too small, move on to other big lines. There's another one here, simple tilt, big angle. It's a little narrow maybe, make it a touch wider. And I'll speed this up just for a second, and while I add more of those big lines. And I hope it's helpful for you to see this drawing come together, see this process. I want to say there's really no magic in drawing, but that's not true. I think there's magic, but there's a process, a method to creating that magic. Okay, so here's an interesting problem for the proportion glasses. We have that latissimus muscle. How do we know at what height that needs to be? Let me show you a useful strategy. Find top, find bottom, and then find your measurement and halfway of this distance. Halfway would be around here, maybe a little higher, somewhere in there. Let me do the same on the drawing. Top, bottom, your measurement, and halfway. So now we can compare those segments. And on our drawing, that's quite a bit smaller. What about the top? That's bigger. So we need to move the latissimus up a bit. Something like that. And as I did this, my alignment glasses kicked in. And I see an alignment from the bottom of the deltoid with that latissimus. This point and that line. Same on the original. Okay, we're now about 10 minutes in, and I think you've got the basic working method. This is it. So I'll speed up the video again for a little while and slow down again to show an example of the implied lines glasses. I try not to be lazy and correct any mistakes that I notice at this point, and still keep everything as simple as possible. And here's that implied line. If we continue this calf, through the legs, it kind of flows into the arm. Well, that's working in the drawing, and it's also working in the original. So far, so good. Fleshing out the feet, and I noticed that the distance from the bottom of the foot to the border of the image looks a bit too large. If you're doing any kind of master copy or working from a photo reference, it can be quite useful to measure from your subject to the edge of the image. If we were working from life, in this case, I would use my knitting needle and measure again from the top of the head to the bottom of that foot. And indeed, that's a little bit too short, so we can lower that foot just a touch and perform some plastic surgery on it. And I'll keep this sped up again. It's quite a distinct shape of that foot, and I actually put on the creaturizing glasses here. Can you see the little bunny rabbit? Right? Try to see that foot as the rabbit, as that creature. Can you see in both the original and in my drawing? I hope you do. This is a big help in seeing and drawing that complex shape. Adding more lines, continuing to flesh it out. I'll shut up for a moment. Okay, so that belly area is quite complicated. And there's a great technique you can do if you're working digitally. Bring a copy of the section you're working on close to your drawing, like I'm doing now. This way I'm not distracted by all the other stuff that's happening in the drawing. I'm focusing in on this specific area. And I'm using my alignment classes, proportions, angles, everything focused on that specific area. I'm tempted to speed this up, but I want to show you how carefully and slowly I'm working. You can't really rush drawing at this stage in this way. And that little line, I've redrawn it and redrawn it until it feels like I got the right angle and the right curvature. That said, I don't want to torture you, so let's speed it up again, and I'll put on some music.